everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Happy Tuesday.
All right, so today, acceptance deadlines, what happens when someone doesn't sign the contract to buy and sell before acceptance deadline. We'll provide a few scenarios as well as a few solutions to help you keep the transaction together. Then switch gears to a general Q&A.
I think 5-ish questions that we'll answer today. So one being, what's the purpose of the acceptance deadline on the contract to buy and sell?
Perfect.
So we're going to define that today.
So let's pretend that we're the buyers, right? Or the sellers. We want to be the buyers or sellers?
Let's be the sellers today.
Let's be the sellers. Okay. So you got your offer. You're the listing agent. The offer came in from the buyers. And the acceptance deadline is tonight at 5 p.m.
All right.
And you've got a handful of offers, and you're reviewing these, and some are for tomorrow, and some are for today, and what do? What if I want more time to look at all these, and I'm not going to respond to that 5 o'clock, in fact, really the 5 o'clock when I don't even really love it that much. I wouldn't accept it the way it is. I might counter it, but I might not.
They may not be the highest and
They
best.
might not be the highest and best, so I'm just going to wait till tomorrow and start responding. What do I got to do with that 5 o'clock one today, just in case I do want to counter it?
Nothing. You don't have to do anything.
Yes.
So, by definition, the acceptance date and time on the contract to buy and sell is if your seller is going to accept that offer as it's written. It's not a response deadline. And I think that's where the confusion comes. It's acceptance, not response.
So if you're going to counter it, and remember, a counter is not just the price. I mean, I see some people that say, well, I just want to change some of the verbiage, real small, but we like the whole thing. You're countering that, and you're giving that buyer an opportunity to go, maybe we got too excited. Maybe another listing came on the market in between the time that I wrote the offer and that. So anytime you make a change to that original offer, that is considered a counter.
Correct.
Period. And no, you cannot do an amendment to an offer that you have not accepted. Because I've heard people say, well, what if I just write up an amendment and we kind of fix it? Well, no, you have to either accept it or counter it. Exactly. You can't amend something that you're not under contract for because it says amendment to the offer. Well, you haven't accepted it. So, make it simple again.
Yeah.
That acceptance deadline, you accept it only if you love it the way it is.
No changes.
No changes.
Otherwise, that deadline means nothing.
Nope.
You just cruise right through it.
Yep. So you're going to counter it. I can counter that tomorrow. There is no deadline for when I can counter that first offer. Because all I'm really doing is writing an offer back to the buyer. I'm writing an offer. The seller is writing an offer.
Yeah, a proposal
back. A proposal back. Yeah, so, yeah, we get that question a lot.
Yeah, and I think most of the time the question comes in and you guys are in a slight panic. Oh my gosh, I have an acceptance deadline in 30 minutes and I'm trying to type up my counter. Can you review it for me now? And I say, you've got plenty of time. The acceptance deadline only matters if your seller is going to sign the offer as it was written. Because you're countering, there's going to be a new acceptance date and time on the counter. Yeah. So that overrides anything. So no need to panic.
Don't panic.
Exactly. But of course, it's nice to communicate to the other agent, hey, I'm preparing a counter. That way they're not wondering, what's going on? Are we getting the house? Are we not getting the house? Why haven't we heard anything?
Yep. Yeah. What's the other scenario?
So one other scenario, it's slightly off topic on acceptance date and deadlines, but it has come up a couple of times. When should the agent sign the contract? So you as the listing agent, offer comes in, your seller is going to be countering the offer. When do you sign it? Some people have thought, which is a myth, that it has to be signed by the acceptance date and time by the listing agent.
Right.
Not true.
Yeah, you're not signing the contract between the buyer and the seller. You're signing a contract between you and the other agent.
Right.
And that's outside of the real contract. It's just down at the very bottom, what's the section?
Yeah, it's actually called acknowledgement and broker compensation.
Yeah.
So basically you're acknowledging I'm party to the, I'm representing one of the parties in this contract and that I'm going to be paid by X person.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And you're stating how you're representing your client, whether
Exactly.
you're a buyer's agent, a transaction broker, because you do have the opportunity to get paid differently depending on how that
Representation.
listing was being filled in.
So you can sign that before your client sign it. You can
Yep.
sign it after your
Anytime.
client sign it. You could sign it 3 days before closing. The sooner the better so you don't forget.
But sign it.
But sign it.
That is not, you're not accepting the offer for your client.
Exactly.
You're
So-
just communicating between you and that.
I mean, your
agent.
business practice could be that every offer that comes in, you sign that acknowledging receipt of the offer. It doesn't have to be an accepted offer for your signature to go on it.
Very good. And while we're at it, on that section, it states whether or not you're receiving the earnest money.
Yes.
And while we're talking about that, receiving the earnest money does not mean being a delivery person.
Yeah, like your buyer gives you the check to turn into the title company. That's
Yeah.
not what that
That's
section
not
means.
receipt. It's receiving means we're going to take it and I'm going to deposit this into our trust account. And as most of you know, we don't have a trust account. We put that into a title company. So
So you will always mark the does not box, always with equity.
it has nothing to do with delivering.
Yes.
So very good.
Very good. So let's say that we represent the seller. The offer comes in from the buyer. Our seller wants to counter. So we create a counter. It's outside the acceptance deadline, which we've discussed is
It's
just
fine.
fine. And we give them 6 hours to respond back to that counter, the buyer.
Mhm.
So let's say we drafted it at noon. We have an acceptance deadline on the counter of 6 o'clock. What happens if the buyer doesn't sign that counter by 6, but wants to move forward and that counter expires? You draft a new counter,
Write up a new one.
write up a new one.
Again, you can't amend something that was not accepted.
Exactly.
So we just had this like a week ago. Someone said, well, can I write an amendment and extend the deadline?
Nope.
You can't amend something that's not been put together. And it's so easy. Just go back in the CTM.
The buyer's agent
redraw.
or you can redraw up that counteroffer, put a new acceptance date and time on that, and be just fine. The other scenario that comes up more often than we'd actually think it should is what happens if one buyer signs the counter in time and the other buyer signs it 45 minutes late. So you have an executed contract. So our words of advice are, you could have a voidable contract or a void contract because
Well, who, is this the buyer or the seller we're talking about signs that counter?
the buyer signs the counter
Okay.
after the acceptance. So one signs it and the other one doesn't sign it. They're both on the contract. We say redraft that counter offer just to make it clean. Because last thing you want is 2 days before closing, buyer gets cold feet and says, don't know if we were technically under contract. I didn't actually sign that counter offer in time and we want to get out of the contract. I think there's a lot of gray there and we just don't want to mess with that.
Yeah.
So
No reason to have gray. Me though, 2 to sell, 1 to buy. Meaning, whoever is on that deed to sell, the sellers, both have to. Have to. I cannot sell half of our house. Can't happen. But I can buy a house by myself. So, if you do have one buyer, you can hold that one buyer accountable, and you can keep that earnest money because he's like, oh, wait a minute, I can't get financing. We need both of our incomes. No, we're just going after you. You said you were buying.
you
But
just
don't put
don't
yourself
want to
into-
get there.
Don't
And
put
yeah,
yourself
and
in
there's
these
other
days.
things like we say the intent to move forward is there. Both buyers want to move forward. There's no animosity. There's no, both buyers meant to sign on time and they didn't. We're going to move forward in good faith. Could you ride that way? Absolutely. But do you want to?
Right.
No. Just
We're at the beginning stages. There's no reason not to clean it up. Now, you're 2 weeks into this. You're sitting and hearing this Tuesday talk. going, oh, this is exactly what just happened.
Yeah.
I have a buyer that signed 2 weeks ago, 45 minutes, just like you guys said. What do I do? Should I? Don't worry about it. Everyone signed it. Everyone's moving forward. That's the best thing you can do, because the last thing you want to do is try and cancel this now.
Yeah.
That's.
Or bring to someone's attention the right that they could maybe not move forward.
Yeah. So,
but
only if this is right in the beginning.
And the same goes with amend extend. Sometimes you guys draft amend extends, changing inspection resolution or loan termination or home sale contingency, and those addendums don't get signed in time. Just draft a new one, change that acceptance date and time, and you're good to move forward. So we'd rather dot all our I's, cross all our T's than have that gray of what if.
Yeah.
So
perfect.
Let's see, what other scenarios?
Well, you mentioned about the counter offer.
Yep.
And we don't care who writes the counter offer up. And it's okay that the seller writes it up and then someone didn't sign it. Who cares if the buyer writes it, the agents are talking to each other. You want to get that drafted real quickly. I'll get it drafted real quickly. The main thing is, let's get it all in writing that we're all agreeing to, and let's all sign it. And again, that's how a counter can go back and forth, and you're not countering it. You're just trying to come to terms, knowing what everybody has talked about, and get it all on one piece of paper that we're all signing.
We're all in agreement.
We're all in agreement, and only one piece of paper, meaning one counter, exists. So if you had one over here, and there's a few things we didn't like or did like, and then you wrote another one, end of the day, all we're going to be left with is the original contract and one counter.
Yep.
Those other ones do not.
And I think we've mentioned that before. They don't stack on each other. They override each other. So if you like something from a counter, pull it into the new counter because it's not going to stack. The clarification I want to make today is amend extends do stack.
Yes.
So if you do a $1,500 closing cost concession in the contract when it's first executed, and then inspection comes and you decide you're going to do a $4,000 total, which includes the original, you have to make sure that your wording is correct, because that amend is going to stack, and anything else that you agree upon is going to stack on top of that. So I have seen that accidentally. One amend says, $1,000 concession. Another amend says $2,000. And then the buyer thinks they're getting $3,000, but the seller says, no, I meant a total of $2,000, but that's not how it's written. That gets a little ugly. Yeah. So amend, extend, stack, counter proposals do not.
Great.
All right. What else we got?
That's all I got.
That's it.
Happy Thanksgiving. We won't be seeing or talking to you until Thanksgiving, so have a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah, have a
safe Thanksgiving.
Well, good job, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys. Have a great
Happy
rest of your week.
Thanksgiving. We'll see you guys.
See ya.
Bye.